Star. So, first of all, thank you for meeting with me.
No
This
problem.
very intimate conversation. It can go on as long as you want, but we'll talk about so many things. We'll talk about Degrassi, of course,
Mhm.
but we won't stay there because it's been a long time coming, so many things. But you're fired up. You're doing you're doing amazing, and I've been a fan since Degrassi, but I've also sort of followed you online. So you have an amazing content strategy. You
Do
have
you think so?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
okay.
And you know what? You know what's interesting is like I'm such a digital nerd that
Mhm.
like I see things that people don't necessarily see with themselves.
Yeah.
Cool thing is that the digital strategy shouldn't be obvious.
Yeah. No, yeah. Technically, I mean, I guess if you like strategy, then you notice strategy. But in truth, strategy is silent, right? Like it's
Mhm,
not meant
mhm.
to be like obvious kind of thing, I guess in anybody's career. I have a friend where we love strategy and we're endlessly talking about it, but it's like it's our thing. So if we were having this conversation with other people, they probably would look at us like we were nuts, but it's our thing. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and you know what? So I'm just pulling up the questions that I sent you.
Go
So
ahead.
speaking of strategy, I want to start with your creative journey, right? So you've been an actress for a really long time, since childhood probably, right? You've
Mhm.
been in so many different things. Tell us how you started there, and by us, I mean me and the audience.
Yeah.
Tell us how you started there as a young actress, then
Mhm.
moved to producing.
Mhm,
What did that
mhm.
look like?
Yeah, no, I was very fortunate that my mom was approached in the mall by a casting director when I was a toddler, or when I was yeah, I guess a year old is considered a toddler. Um, and um and she didn't know anybody doing this at the time. So she just kind of like took the card of the person
Mhm.
and was like, okay, whatever. And then like the next year she was on maternity leave again with my brother and had time. And she kept the card and she was like, sure, let's see. Calls the lady remembers, and that was essentially how I started. I started doing print and commercials and things like that. But um, I don't know, it's very like chicken or the egg in my life because I was always an entertainment baby. My mom didn't ever have to force me. I loved entertainment. And so it was like one of those moments where, yes, I easily entered the industry, but I don't think I would have ever had another desire for anything else. This is just what I loved doing from when I was a kid in school to just everything. And so, starting from a very young age, to some people may seem like, oh, yeah, it's like you're kind of easy start. And it's an easy in, but at the same time, the pursuit is your own pursuit. And so, starting with commercials and then print and then just kind of moving your way up. Like when you're a kid, it's like, your experience of acting is like just kind of whatever dialogue is in a commercial essentially, and then you kind of just keep going and keep going. And my mom always said like I just liked it, so she never had to kind of force me. She was just kind of lucky that we learned together. We were both
Yeah.
experiencing it together. But in terms of, I guess you could say, producing, I always knew as somebody in the industry that you would have to create your own opportunities. I
Yes.
read this article, I don't even know what age I was. I might have been like 14. And it was on Reese Witherspoon. And Reese Witherspoon was talking about having to create her own opportunities to have,
And look at what Reese has done, right? So
yeah, she's incredible.
incredible. And then she has not just within film, but she has a imprint, yeah? Like
Oh yeah. No,
her
it's like, yeah,
company, yeah,
her book club,
and the book
Hello
club.
Sunshine. Like Reese is my like beaming North Star. And she has been for so long, but it really did inspire me when I was a teenager because the industry is hard. And in many ways, I was like Reese Witherspoon, who is, for all, she's all American white woman, right? Like in terms of the standard in the industry, like her opportunities are going to come a lot more than somebody like me. And if she at that time was like, I need to create opportunities for women, for people that like just for better stories, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to do that. So I didn't know necessarily when that moment would come. And when you're a kid, you don't really know. But then essentially the internet happened. And that kind of led to allowing you to kind of try things out and open things up. And I remember I'd done this uh film for Nickelodeon, and I had kind of just a weird experience, like just a lot of microaggressions and just like a strange experience. But I came out of it and I was like, oh, it's time for me to kind of like now create for myself. And my girlfriend and I had started we really started a blog, but with it had a YouTube channel. And that is essentially what kind of taught me creativity in the sense of freedom. Like it's the early days of YouTube. There's no pressure to make money. There's no anything. There's nothing. It's like,
We
do
love the early YouTube days.
Yes, do whatever you want. Like even my agents didn't even understand it. Like they always called it, they were just like, that's your college years stuff. Like we have no idea what that was. And in the truth, at the time, I knew it was me learning to express myself creativity with as much creativity as I want and to show all the things that I knew how to do and that I knew story and that I knew producing. I knew all these things and I it was really like a crash course. So in many ways, by the time I then made my web series Black Actress, I was very familiar with the idea of content and like the push and pull of it. This in the sense of like whatever you want to see, you have to make. If you want the industry to look at you a certain way, if you want people to look at you a certain way, you have to present it. You can't just kind of hope and wish that somebody sees you and creates this thing.
I
So
want to jump in right there because that actually segues to my next question. So Hazel
Mhm.
was your prominent character, but she was one of the only Black major teenage melodrama characters that we knew internationally, right? I
Yeah, yeah,
know. And as a
yeah.
young Black girl, what were you trying to tell? What story were you trying to tell as Hazel for other young Black girls in high school or in junior high school?
Hmm.
Seeing that character grow, but how'd you really tell us who she was? And there was like, I don't think, besides Jimmy, who's played by Aubrey Graham,
Hmm.
Drake, and then later was Toby, but and
Hmm.
Liberty, but we didn't have many prominent Black characters. Also, Happy Black History Month,
Yeah,
everyone.
you know.
Um, but what were you trying to tell us with Hazel? What do we need to know?
In truth, I love that question, but in truth, when you're a teenage actress in a project, the most you can be is representation because you don't have any freedoms. You're not writing the script, you're not coming up with your lines, you're not doing anything of that nature, but you are a representative. And I knew the importance of representation because I was that little girl that I loved Tia and Tamara, I loved Gabrielle Union, like I loved
Yes,
these
yes.
faces that you would get to see. And even if they had two lines, no lines, they were oh, there's somebody that looks like me. Oh my gosh, there's a girl I can kind of see myself as. And so with Hazel, especially at that time, I don't think I was really processing, I'd say I guess the level of her importance. I mean, I had some awareness of it because people would talk to me about it a
It
lot.
was so important, especially for like I remember Hazel being there was like a scene where she stood up for something, and it's
Mhm.
blanking. But first of all, Hazel was always standing up for something. But she was not a quiet person. But there was something. I think was it the scene? It was a scene where Hazel was outside. Her hair was in a ponytail, and something happened. And I don't know. Maybe it was after the shooting with Jimmy. And she had been talking about that. And full disclaimer for the audience: this is fictional television. Everyone here.
Yeah, at this point you can go see it. It's not a
But in the
spoiler.
in the show, it's not a spoiler. You can check out Degrassi.
It's like
It's
20 years old.
20 years old, everybody.
Yeah.
So that scene where I feel like she had like a stance on that and she spoke
Mhm,
out about it. That for me, I thought I was there. I thought I was friends with her, but it was so hard. I do think a teenage actress
mhm.
would convey that and talk about like a school, shooting.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, one, the cast, we were real teens. And so, in dealing with real teen topics, you're supported by your cast. And though we might not have necessarily spoken about it with like the writers or something like that, but we would speak about it amongst each other. And and kind of I guess you can kind of lean on each other in that way. Like there's an element of knowing your profession, also knowing the space and time, also, understanding that you're dealing with very serious topics. So I think as a cast, we were very good at the balance of a serious topic while also like being very light in between takes. Like nothing felt so heavy
That's
for
good.
us.
I mean, that's healthy.
Yeah.
The show, so first of all, Degrassi has been many versions of it since
Yeah.
then, but I would say yours set the tone for the future generation. And
Yeah.
it
I
was
guess
well done.
I was gonna say, I guess it depends on what era you watched it in. So Degrassi is like a legacy show in Canada, and it
Mhm.
had like from the 80s. So I'd meet people all the time that like watched it in the 80s or watched it in the 90s, and then or my generation where they were like, oh, that was like the pivotal generation for me, or like the generation after. And so I think that's the fun thing about the show is it's like it has this kind of long extension and it is it means something to people in a different way depending on where you were in
Mhm.
life and your experience in life. And so, yeah, it's interesting because only now, I think, as an adult, do you have that awareness. Because when you're a teenager, you are a teenager, and so you're like, okay, cool, we did this hard scene. Like, who wants to go to dinner? Like, it's like it was very much that, and in the best way. And now when I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, I think that's teens dealing with teen stuff because in truth, I don't think we could hold the heaviness of some of these stories for like days upon days. I don't think we could do that. I think that would just be too much for us because you also really, you still had your real life. You're learning to drive, or oh, you're finding your independence. Or I always remember when like a few of us were able to like drive to set, like that was the bigger focus than whatever
And the
serious
actual
thing. Yeah,
like, yeah.
like
I mean, that's
scene.
healthy. That means you had a positive childhood while
Mhm.
working,
Yeah.
which is what we all want. We want to do what we love as kids, and at the same time, still enjoy it and have friends. I think I've seen you are friends with people from the cast still today.
Yeah, yeah, I am still
So
friends with them.
you
Yeah.
forge relationships. So how would you say you've been an actor, actress,
Hmm.
showcasing and telling stories with yourself, and now you're a producer and you are also in glam culture. We want to highlight glam culture because it's so important.
Hmm.
The beauty industry has changed tremendously over the years.
Yeah, it has.
It wasn't always inclusive for every single shade, for every
Hmm.
single type of woman, every single type of person. And glam culture really like brings a positive light to the blackness and beauty,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And not just in one space, so throughout the diaspora, right?
Hmm.
And so let's talk about how you, as a producer, convey that message while being in it as an actor, right?
Hmm.
Or as
Hmm.
yourself, rather, but from a different lens, how you tell that story to other Black women and what you want them to know from glam culture.
Yeah, my love of beauty and beauty storytelling, I'll say, started as a teenager on set, started in makeup rooms, started with being able to see a lack of shades or being curious as to how a makeup artist was gonna match my complexion or highlight my beauty in that way. I've had every experience, the good, the bad, all of it. Um, and and I just developed more and more of a love of beauty in real life also because I was like I'm a consumer. I always tell people that I'm a true consumer.
Hmm.
I'm like an actual fan of these kinds of things. But I also love the diaspora. I like genuinely do. I love learning about culture and and how our cultures mirror each other, how they show up in different ways, whether you're a Black American or you're a Caribbean person or you're a Latin person. Like there's so many overlaps, there's so much richness within our spaces. And so for me, especially growing up as a Black girl on TV, oftentimes you're not highlighted in that way. People are not necessarily looking at you and being like, I'm going to highlight her as the beauty. I'm going to make sure she's feeling really seen and that other girls that look like her feel really seen. And so when it came to storytelling for the beauty space, I just knew that I was only going to highlight Black women. mainly because I have seen the shifts. I actually have been a witness to the power of our voices, the power of our community, and then also the shifts and the changes in the industry. When I started on my docuseries Black Beauty Effect, when I really came up with that idea, I was living in Brooklyn, and in Brooklyn, it was like you got to see every single type of Black woman, like every
Every
single
single
type.
type of Black person, yes.
All the time you got to see it. So I really got to see how important beauty was and how important believing in your beauty really was. And then also I got to see the beginning of like the natural hair movement and then like beauty YouTubers and all of that kind of stuff. And what was so fascinating for me was the community it was creating,
Mhm.
that we were becoming this really dominant force. We were understanding the power of our own influence, but popular media wasn't necessarily highlighting us in this way.
No.
They weren't treating us as like this consumer, as this like power in
So
our
they
dollar.
still aren't highlighting us, but
Mhm.
we will highlight each other, which is essentially what I think glam culture is about. You can correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah, yeah,
but
no, it is.
it's your personal highlight of each other. It
Yeah.
feels like when I'm watching it, I've seen a few episodes, it feels like a sisterhood on your screen.
Hmm.
Even though you're sitting and having conversations similar to this one,
Hmm.
it feels like I'm there, like a sisterhood, where
Hmm.
I think I saw like the Essence portion. And it's
Hmm.
funny because we met at Essence, but I didn't know you were filming Glam Culture. I didn't know
Hmm.
that. And then I also saw you in New York where I live.
Hmm.
I didn't
Yeah.
know you were filming Glam Culture.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
to see the product after, when you're like just filming is really beautiful. But I felt like I was a part of this conversation. I felt like this
Yeah.
conversation was for women like me or women that
Yes.
look like me.
Yes.
So I know this series lives on YouTube, right?
Hmm.
For the time being. Do you have plans, if you can share, to have it elsewhere, like on Netflix?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the thing that when we were really developing it and putting it together and all of those kinds of things was like from a filmmaking standpoint, we wanted it to be accessible for everyone. We wanted to like no person to not be able to watch it. And YouTube is still the most powerful streaming platform that we have.
Yep.
And it gives the creator the freedom, especially for Black creators, where there's times when the industry is not championing our stories, or oh, they're cutting DEI or they're doing all these things. And so you're like, I don't want to have a story where there's somebody who can tell me that it's not important to highlight Black women at Essence Fest, or that it's not universal to talk about the New York beauty scene from the perspective of Black makeup artists and hairstylists. I want to
Mhm.
be able to tell these stories freely, and YouTube gave us that opportunity. But we're always looking to expand. So, yeah.
Yes. And you know what? It doesn't stop there. So
Hmm.
it's not just visual, it is also written. So you
Hmm.
write a lot on Substack, and
Hmm.
there's a beautiful Substack that I'm subscribed to where
Hmm.
you talk about glam culture and other things in article form or in blog form.
Hmm.
So tell us about what we can expect on Substack. How is this an extension of your video format of the show that you put out? And what do you want people to receive when they read this?
Oh my gosh. One, I love Substack. I think it's just like such a beautiful space. And just like how you had said it, like the point of glam culture, the point of all the work that I do is community, is really to make community feel seen and heard, and in connection with each other. And what I love about being able to add a written component to glam culture is that like I get to express the story further, because yes, like while I've been very proud of the work that we're able to make, we operate like a studio. Like it's like, okay, we only got a certain amount of time, we only got so much story we can put in. There's so many rich moments that we end up cutting, or just like thinking, okay, we'll have to use this later, we'll have to do this. The beauty of Substack is that you kind of get to share a little bit more of your perspective and all the different ways that you think glam and beauty and culture shows up in the world. And so Substack to me is was just like kind of a natural addition. I knew that I wanted to expand this world as much as possible, and we're still working on different things like that, of whether it be in-person event, written components, just anything that we can, because for me, the beauty in these spaces is being able to be around women, men and women who
Mm.
feel connected to these stories, who understand the power of feeling seen, the power of beauty, the power of fashion, the power of expression. And that's really the goal whenever I'm doing any kind of storytelling is really I just want us to understand how important our expression is and how creative we are and that we should be in community with each other. And so everything I do is meant to have a community component.
Do we have a Glam Culture season two to discuss a different type of community? Because the beauty industry is vast. Like there
Hmm.
is so much to uncover, and
Hmm.
it and I saw like it wasn't just makeup, it was hair, it was all
Hmm.
types of
Hmm.
things. Do we have a season two coming?
Yeah, we have more episodes coming, and it is just as you said, like what's been fascinating for me is one, I travel a lot. So I get to have these kind of conversations a lot. And like I said, I am a true consumer of beauty and fashion. So I am privileged to speak to stylists and hairstylists and makeup artists and like I have these conversations all day. So
Mhm.
I'm always like, oh, how can I share these stories more? And then I have a very diverse friend group in the sense of I get to hear about how culture shows up
Mhm.
and the beauty in how culture shows up and the excitement that culture brings to people, whether it's my friends that are Nigerian and they're British, or my friends that are from New Orleans, or my friends that are Trinidadian and from Toronto. Like I get to see all the different ways that we express ourselves. And so, and the importance of what that expression looks like. And also, the understanding of what our community is interested in. I always tell people, I'm like, I had done a screening in London, and what was fascinating for me was the conversation was around ownership and how do we own and how as a community can we show up for our founders and for our content creators and what does that look like
Mhm.
versus I did a screening in DC and the conversation was around colorism and like really vulnerable stories on complexion and family and showing up in the world. And so I'm like, all of these people are the same. They're all on the same line and they all want to hear their stories. And so when I think of a space like Glam Culture, I'm like, yes, it is meant to express every end of what our creative expression looks like, from costume to makeup to hair to just culture on a whole, and understanding why these things are important and why these, I always see things online of like, oh, the recipes are being lost. I'm like, hopefully with Glam Culture, we get to preserve a lot of the recipes.
So preserving recipes is really interesting because so I have this old saying for myself where like I'm very ancestral in many of my things that I do, and I think of the tools that my ancestors had to create things or to express themselves in general, and
Yeah.
they didn't have the same ingredients as us, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's so interesting to hear you say that because, like, how do we take all the ingredients we have, all the access we have, all the resources we have, and tell our stories in the correct way where it's one, enjoyable, but also we can teach each other, we can
Hmm.
motivate each other in the same place. So I think glam culture does that. It takes pieces from each part of different spaces and
Hmm.
it conveys this real consistent African diaspora or open message about these big issues in
Hmm.
the beauty industry. It is phenomenal. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
We're almost out of time. I could talk to you forever. But thank you for meeting with me and I'll stop recording now. But let me stop it.